Greetings and welcome to you all. I am Susanna Clark, Director of the Mahindra Humanities Center and the Morton B. Knoffel Professor of Music at Harvard University. Welcome to today's event featuring Omaid Sharifi, who is at Harvard University this year under the auspices of the Scholars at Risk program. Omaid Sharifi is an artivist from Afghanistan. He is a patron of the arts, a curator, and the co-founder and president of ArtLords. ArtLords was established in 2014 and is, and I quote here, a grassroots movement of artists and volunteers motivated by the desire to pave the way for social transformation and behavioral change through employing the soft power of art and culture in a non-intrusive approach. As its president, Omaid Sharifi spent 7 years transforming stretches of Kabul's concrete blast walls with murals. He has been recognized for his extraordinary humanity and artivism. His numerous awards include a Millennium Leadership Fellowship with Atlantic Council, a Fellowship of Asia Society 21, and an American Foreign Relations Council Rumsfeld Fellowship. Last fall, he was awarded the inaugural Shireen Prize during the 2021 Asia Game Changer Awards for his bravery in helping 54 Afghan artists escape the country after the Taliban took over last August. Indeed, Omaid Sharifi is here at Harvard as a scholar at risk, having himself fled Kabul during the Taliban takeover. He arrived in the US with a t-shirt and his backpack, leaving everything else behind. He has vowed to restore the once vibrant and dynamic art scene in Afghanistan. Naturally, Omaid, we are saddened by the horrific circumstances that brought you here. But we hope that your year at Harvard has provided you with some level of academic comfort in which to pursue your important humanitarian work and your artistic imagination. And I would like to take this opportunity to say a few words about the Scholar at Risk program. It is a fellowship at Harvard intended to provide a safe environment for a scholar to pursue research and scholarly or artistic interests. Harvard Scholars at Risk program has been defined as follows, and it is the largest and most vigorously active and most successful program of its kind in the country and perhaps in the world. A member of an international network of participating universities, Harvard Scholars at Risk program has provided sanctuary to dozens of professors, lecturers, researchers, artists, writers, and other intellectuals who are at risk. The risk may be related to the scholar's work, but it may also be a consequence of the scholar's ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or political opinions. By supplying an academic position to excellent and accomplished scholars in need, Harvard Scholars at Risk program helps scholars to escape dangerous conditions and to continue their important work. We are grateful to Jane Unruh, the director of the Scholars at Risk program, for all of her extraordinary and tireless work in support of scholars at risk, and in particular in shepherding the arrangement with Omaid Sharifi. Today, our program begins with a screening of a documentary and then a presentation by Omaid Sharifi. And after that, he will be joined by our moderator, David Joselit, for a discussion and Q&A session. David Joselit is professor and chair of the Department of Art, Film, and Visual Studies at Harvard University. He works on the history and theory of image circulation, and the topics of his writings have ranged from Marcel Duchamp to television to the transformation of art and architecture in the digital age. His most recent book, Heritage and Debt, Art in Globalization, was published in 2020 by MIT Press, and it received the 2021 Robert Motherwell Book Award. David Joselit joined the faculty at Harvard in 2020, although at the time he was no stranger to the Boston area. He studied at both Harvard and MIT as a student, and he began his career at the ICA in Boston as a curator. And in between, he taught at the University of California at Irvine, Yale University, and the CUNY Graduate Center. And so it is my great pleasure to get the program tonight started, which we will begin with a documentary screening, as I mentioned. And as I also said, Omaid will then give a presentation, and then he will be joined by David Joselit for a discussion and question time. We invite you to ask your questions by using the Q&A function, and you may pose your question at any time during the presentation. So thank you all for joining us. I look forward to everything you have to say, Omaid, and to the discussion, David. And so I hand the stage over now for our documentary screening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Salam, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you, Susie, for the kind introduction. I am grateful to you, to Jane, Mahindra Humanities Center, the Scholars Address Program, for hosting me this year at Harvard. And thank you, David, for moderating this evening's session. The video that you just watched, it always brings tears to my eyes because it's a compilation and highlights of the work of ArtLords, which was happening all over Afghanistan. And the work included painting murals together, street theater sessions, art therapy workshops, music, dance, youth conferences, regional youth conferences, all of that done by ArtLords in the last 8 years. It was just a glimpse of the colorful and the beautiful Afghanistan, which we were working very hard for it. To just introduce to you the work of ArtLords and what we have been doing in the last 8 years, I've prepared some slides to just give you an idea of the kind of work which we were using art, especially public art, as a tool for social transformation in Afghanistan. The work of ArtLords started in 2014. I just have to give you a background of why we started it in 2014. This is the time that the NATO and American forces are drawing down. So we had earlier, President Obama had announced a surge in troops earlier in the 2010, 2011 years. And then he had a timeline for when the troops will withdraw from Afghanistan. A significant number of the troops will withdraw from Afghanistan. And this is the time that 2014 is portrayed as a doomsday for Afghanistan. It is, everybody thinks that by 2014, the government of Afghanistan will no longer be there, the Taliban will take control. There's a lot of hopelessness among the people. And this has caused a lot of brain drain. The young generations is leaving Afghanistan. The businesses, the entrepreneurs, they're all leaving. The money is leaving Afghanistan. So it's not a very positive situation. And at the same time, you have a lot of explosions, you have a lot of kidnappings, you have a lot of corruption. So all of this happening, and it had really created a toxic environment. Sometimes you would feel suffocated to be working and living in this kind of an environment. So this is the time that we decided that we had to do something. As citizens of Afghanistan, as residents of Kabul, we had to do something that could bring a bit of hope, bring a bit of color, reduce the toxicity which was happening, and also encourage some creativity, innovation, problem solving, and all of that. So this is the time we thought, let's establish ArtLords with a couple of our friends. And the name was interesting as well, because Afghanistan is always known as, with the names associated, drug lords, warlords, corrupt lords, all of those negative lords. We wanted to be the positive lords. We wanted to be the constructive lords. We wanted to be the happy lords, if you say. So we established ArtLords 2014, and we used these ugly blast walls, which you can see the image here, as our canvas. So these are, if any of you visited Afghanistan or you've seen it in the news, so this blast walls are like 8 meters tall, concrete and steel. It covers all the government offices, the embassies, a lot of public places, and also it had become sort of a prestigious symbol that the business people, everybody like who had the money and the means, they would like bring these walls around their houses, block the roads. So it was sort of, one reason was protecting themselves because of the explosions and all of that. But at the same time, it was also sort of a divide between the powerful and the rich and the ordinary citizens of Afghanistan. we thought that this is sort of taking our space, the space that we were riding our bicycles, we were walking, or the roads were blocked. So somehow we decided that we have to reclaim back these spaces by creating ArtLords, and we would have messages which are important for the citizens of Afghanistan. When we started it with our volunteers, artists, activists, everybody come together, putting our own means and resources, and then start painting. And when we were painting these murals, we were creating a platform because people were coming and asking questions that, what are we doing? Because this was very new for Kabul at that time. You would not see publicly people coming over and starting painting at a presidential palace or the Ministry of Interior or very prominent locations in the heart of Kabul city. So it would raise a lot of questions. And then we would invite all these people to take brushes and paint with us. And this really sort of encouraged a lot of engagement and ownership back to the people. And creating this platform also helped us to have conversations about all those important social issues that Afghanistan was facing. One of them being corruption or human rights, women's rights, issues of transitional justice. All of these important issues were coming up in these conversations that we were having while painting murals. And it sort of became a platform that could be a voice for the voiceless, and a platform where real people will come and they will bring their own messages. So somehow, when we did a couple of murals, it really went viral. People loved it. Everybody was joining us on the streets, and they were asking us questions in social media that when is the next painting happening, how they can contribute, how they can join. And they were sending us topics, themes, that these are the issues which were very important for the people. And this somehow made us think that through these murals, we can really encourage innovative ways. We can encourage people to think about solving their own problems, finding solutions for our own problems in our communities, in our villages, and also promoting critical thinking, because in Afghanistan, we are not taught critical thinking, not in our households, not in our mosques, not in our high schools or universities. We never gained this skill. So we thought maybe by promoting, by encouraging people to ask questions, we can probably help them think critically. And also through these murals and talking to them in these platforms, we could change their attitudes, their behaviors towards very important social issues. So somehow this is how ArtLords came to being. It encouraged responsibility. It also encouraged people to start their own initiatives. It became a place that everybody from the kids working on the streets to a minister would come and join hands, get a brush and start painting. Like these images, you would see that a mullah from the mosque, a woman from the civil society, anybody was welcome. It did not matter that you know painting or not. You would just come in, get a brush, start painting, and then leave. If you wanted, you could talk about these issues and we could have a conversation, either you like it or not, or why we're just focusing on issues of which were important for the society. Some of the themes which we really focused at the beginning was fighting corruption. We had this ICU campaign, which is a pair of eyes, and it was, the message was in our local languages, Pashto, Uzbeki, and Farsi, Persian, that I see you, I know you're stealing my money. If not today, tomorrow I'll take you to justice. And also God is watching you, because Afghanistan apparently 99% Muslim. And corruption being so much in the government and in the international community. So somehow this was one of the first and important campaigns which we started, and it continued in the last 8 years. And so if on the right side of your screen, you see an ICU mural, but you can see the image of Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad, which represents the United States, and the Taliban deputy, Mullah Baradar, which they signed an agreement in 2020, I think, in Doha. So it also were saying that the people of Afghanistan, these eyes are the symbols of the people of Afghanistan. We are watching what you're doing. So somehow this mural also went very viral when we painted it in Kabul. Or for example, we had themes and campaigns which were focused on countering violent extremism. I remember the time I was going to school in Kabul, and through my background, I never ever left Afghanistan. I was born, raised, educated, and living in Afghanistan until August last year when I was forced to leave my home country. So in my school, when I was going to school, primary and middle school, my math books were 1 gun plus 1 gun is 2 guns, and you can kill 2 Soviet soldiers with that. So those are the kind of the way we were brainwashed. A whole generation was brainwashed into reading these kind of very violent books, like your math book. So we thought we could bring these issues in public, in our platform, and let's discuss about it, how we can counter the extremism and radicalization which was happening in Afghanistan. And one of the ways was that we could highlight the stories of humans who were lost in this fight. For example, on the left side of your screen is a mural of Rawal Singh. Rawal Singh was a co-founder of ArtLords, and in 2018, he was killed in an explosion. We painted a mural of him with his daughter, which was 11 years old at that time. And we were asking the question that, who are you killing? Like, this is an ordinary Afghan who loved Afghanistan, and just for no reason, the girl lost the father, and ArtLords lost its co-founder, and a beautiful human being was lost to explosions. Or on the right side of the screen is a mural of Hamida Barmaki. She was a commissioner of human rights in Afghanistan, Human Rights Commission in Afghanistan, and her husband and 2 kids were killed in an explosion in a grocery store. And this explosion was claimed by the Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, which had the Hizb Islami political party. And we painted this mural right in front of the house of Hekmatyar. In 2016, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar had joined the Republic of Afghanistan in a peace deal, and he had his mansion and everything in Kabul, but he had killed so many people. One of the ways that we could just raise our concerns and our voice was that we went there and we painted this mural right in front of his house, just to remind him that we have not forgotten what he has done to the people of Kabul and the people of Afghanistan. Or issues of street theater. For example, this is a place in the border with Iran and Afghanistan, and we had street theater shows about migration, about refugees who were leaving Afghanistan, and they were going through very unsafe ways. A lot of them die on the route from Iran to Turkey and all those places. We were using this new medium, which was a street theater, acting in front of the people, and it was very new for them because probably this was the first time they would see a theater show, and they were really getting the message. They were mesmerized, and they would be part of the show at the end. One of the most important parts of our work was meditated art therapy, because most of us, or almost all of us in Afghanistan, have been growing up in the 44, 45 years of war and violence, and we all are going through a lot of mental health issues, and there's literally zero help. There's nothing that people could go or talk about it. So one of the ways for ArtLords was that we would go to schools, universities, and we had art therapy sessions that we would encourage people. We would go with them through the process to just give them a medium, a tool to heal, to find ways to heal themselves. Also, part of the work that we do at ArtLords is showing a different story of Afghanistan, because I believe when we hear about Afghanistan, it's all the negative news. And it is the truth of Afghanistan, but at the same time, there's so much beauty and so much diversity in Afghanistan that the people of the world, they do not know about it. So one part of our work was to be ambassadors of Afghanistan. We were doing a lot of exhibitions, talks, mural paintings in all over the world. And I think as an achievement for a small organization like ArtLords, who's started in the streets of Kabul, it was an honor for us to go out there and be an ambassador and representative of Afghanistan and talk about positive stories about Afghanistan. And as Susie was mentioning, August 15, 2021, on that day, I was painting with 5 of my artists in Kabul city. We had done 2,200 murals by that time. And every corner of Afghanistan, as you saw in the video, was covered by the works of ArtLords. And then the Taliban conquered Kabul. I was forced to leave my homeland. And the first thing that they did, before even announcing their cabinet, they destroyed all these murals. They painted over all the murals we had in every corner of Afghanistan. First thing, you can see the images, they were gone. In a month time, 2,000 murals were painted over. And they had their own messages of propaganda about that these murals or these messages were propaganda by the infidels and all of that. And now there's freedom, Islam, and all of those are the kind of messages that replace the murals. This is the American Embassy in Kabul, which is right across the airport. And this was one of the biggest murals we have done, which was gone also on the first days of when the Taliban took over. And they had their own flag and messages on those murals. But we have continued our work, our advocacy for art and culture in Afghanistan, for providing safety and support for the artists, and also continued our exhibitions, our talks. These are repainting some of our murals in different cities in the United States. We have continued our work with the Afghan refugees. Art therapy sessions are happening all over the world, not only in the United States, but in Afghanistan, in Albania, in Abu Dhabi, in Italy, where the Afghan refugees are relocated. So we have been there, we have been working with them, trying to do our part. This is what we can do through ArtLords, through our art. So we have been continuing doing that. And hopefully different cities in the world will host our murals, the ones that were destroyed by the Taliban, so we will be able to repaint them in different parts of the world. Thank you. And now I invite David Joselit to start our conversation.
Thanks, Omaid. That was moving. I've seen you talk about your work a few times, and it never fails to be inspiring and really super impressive. So thank you. And thanks to Susie and the Mahindra Center and Jane Unruh for hosting you at Harvard. So I want to ask you some practical questions and then maybe zoom out a little bit and think more theoretically about your work. Also, I want to remind everyone in the audience that you can put a question in the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen at any time, and I'll switch over to your questions in 20 minutes or so. So the first thing that is so impressive, I'm trying to imagine what Kabul is like with all of these blast walls, and the thing you said about there almost being a sign of prestige, or if not prestige, a privilege, the privilege to be safe on some level. And I wonder, how did you actually begin to paint on the walls, and was there pushback? I mean, were you sort of really asserting successfully, it seems like, these are public space, despite the fact that they were in front of important figures, houses and embassies and things like that?
Thank you, David, for your kind words, and you have been a great support for me, your advice always. Thank you for that. We had a lot of pushback. When we started the first mural, it took us 2 weeks to convince one government official to give us the permission to paint, because unless we did not have the permission, we could not go near these walls, because these are security walls, and Kabul is heavily militarized city. So on every like 10 meters of these blast walls, you have guard towers, which people with guns are setting to protect these places. So it will be very difficult if you approach these walls and there will be suspicion of anything. You could be shot. So we were trying very hard to convince them that this is a public space and this is making Kabul look like a prison. And they were seeing this prison every single day that they were coming. And I would explain to them that imagine an Afghan, poverty is the elephant in the room. And the moment he's getting out of the house, he's not sure he's going back alive or not, because I had the same feeling. There will be explosions every single day. And the explosions would happen right at the morning time when we were going to our office and work. So I was explaining that this guy coming out of the house with this in his mind, poverty, and then explosions, and then he's looking at all your blast walls. What is he thinking? He's thinking about the divide between you and this person. And this is sort of making it completely in two different worlds. So it took a lot of convincing, but sometimes they would agree after 2 weeks that they would give us the permission to paint. And then they would ask us, what am I painting? Always I would tell them that, okay, it's about fighting corruption. He would not be, or she would not be able to tell me not paint anything about corruption. And then we had that artistic freedom to shape it the way we want to. But once we had a couple of murals out there on the walls and there was news and media and people loved it, it became a bit easier to give the permission, but at the same time, there was a lot of pushback on the content, that what we are painting, they had to see it first. But we were saying, no, we don't want to show you this. We just gave us the permission. So there was always back and forth. And on the first days, David, we also had so many calls of threats. For example, basically they would call me saying, okay, your campaign is a beautiful campaign, go ahead. But if you name somebody, then we will see you, like direct threats. So we had to be very careful in those kind of situations.
So how did you come to muralism, and how did you actually choose the subjects? And one of the very touching things about this whole project is that the murals engaged with people who aren't necessarily professional artists, and you documented that beautifully. All kinds of people joined in, but there must have been some kind of design created, I assume. And I wonder if you could say something about that process. You've already started to say something about it in terms of the constraints within which it was developed. But
so usually the process would involve a lot of conversation and consultation with the community and with the people, and through social media platforms, through conversations, face-to-face meetings, and also we were facing the same challenges every single day in Kabul. For example, if it was the issues of fighting corruption or countering violent extremism or issues of human rights, these were the issues that we were facing every day. And then the people will also tell us about these issues. And then we had the creative team, our team of ArtLords. We would sit together and then design the concepts, conceptualize how best we can show this message, how best we can create these visual alphabets for the people. Because remember, David, we are talking about a country which the critical thinking is missing. There's not a lot of people who can read and write. And so you have to really create the alphabetic visuals for them to really understand and get the message. So that was the really tricky process for us, to become very creative, to conceptualize it in a way that's understandable for the people. And then once that concept was there, we would design it in graphic, make sure that it's readable, acceptable. And we always had messages beside it, that if somebody does not understand the visuals, he could read it, or maybe ask somebody to read it for them, that what does this mean? And then we would sketch it on those walls. So before going on the day of the painting, a day before, a team will go there and sketch it with pencil. to make it easier for the people to join in, like paint by numbers, easier. And the next day we would go there and start painting, and then everybody will join in. And we would not announce the timing for the paintings as well, because we were afraid that there might be explosions or kidnappings and stuff like that happening. So this was like the whole process coming together. And then a person who was painting a part of the mural, and in a day or 2 days, he or she will see that this huge mural is there and it's beautiful and has a message about social issues. So it gave them a lot of sense of empowerment, just engagement, and all of that.
You know, I'm very fascinated about how social media and this ancient media of mural painting came together. You said that people would share on social media. They would, perhaps some of the designs were suggested to you on social media. Could you say a little bit more about that? Were there constraints in the kind of social media conversation that were imposed as well, or was that a kind of freer space?
I think before August 15 last year, Afghanistan had one of the free media spaces in the region, I think, in South Asia region, where there's 8 countries. So we did not have much of restrictions on the mainstream media, and obviously no restrictions on social media. Mm-hmm. And I think this really gave us an opportunity to really connect with a lot of people. But then the challenge was the penetration of the internet services and then the social media was not that big. It was, you might have it in major population areas of major cities, but then it would not go beyond those centers of the districts or centers of the capital provinces. So that was a bit of a challenge, that I might not get messages from across districts from the border areas of Afghanistan and Pakistan. That later on we went there. So that was the next stages of our work, that we ourselves took our team to those remote areas, and then we listened to them, we hear the grievances, and then we kind of painted murals with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you named the number of 2,200 murals across Afghanistan, I don't know if I'd heard you say that before, but if I did, it didn't really sink in. So they were across the country then. So outside of Kabul, you just described, you would visit different places and begin a conversation. And what kinds of sites were there in these smaller cities and villages?
Yes, David, we had, we went to 24 provinces of Afghanistan, and these murals covered from border areas of Afghanistan with Iran, all the way to border areas of Afghanistan with Pakistan. So it covered the whole of Afghanistan. And the murals were always on public places. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to, for example, Spin Boldak, which is a district in bordering Pakistan and Afghanistan, so the murals were on the border walls between Pakistan and Afghanistan, on the district governor's office. Mm-hmm. So the places that there's a lot of the public are coming, it's visible. And then it was also because we could join in and then ask people to join in. So we used all those places which were visible. And these were big murals, like the smallest mural we had done probably be 15 square meters. So always we made sure that we select the prominent locations and bigger murals. And also we always ask the local artists to join in. That's why ArtLords became 53 artists, because all these people from local communities, they joined in, because we wanted, one, that it's easier for them to find these locations, talk to the people, and explain our project. And also that we do not look like a person who's coming from Kabul, privileged, and they just want to do a painting for them. Right. So the local artists were really convincing the people and talking to them and consulting them, and then finding solutions like, okay, this is the concept we want to paint, and we would go and paint it with them.
So just to switch gears a little bit, the large number of artists that you helped to bring out of the country, which is such an incredible thing to have done. Can you give a sense of not their names, of course, but who they were in terms of the range of practices that they were engaged in, and maybe even give us a sense, for many of us, as you said, Afghanistan is known as a war zone. It's not known for the creativity of its people. Here, that's not what we hear in the US media generally. So it would be great to just get a sense of what the world you were in was like, and those people you were able to bring out of the country.
As you can see in the video, David, so we have musicians, part of ArtLords. We have people who are making sculptures, which were part of ArtLords. We had painters, a lot of good painters, which were working with oil colors, with watercolors, with different mediums. And then we had muralists. A major part of our artists were muralists and graffiti artists, calligraphers. So all of this is, and then we had cinema actors, theater actors who were also part of our group. And then the people who were evacuated from Afghanistan, which I was not able to do it alone. I was only sort of a tool to introduce them to the organizations that they could evacuate, and evacuate myself as well, my family, because I was also stuck in Kabul and I had to leave. So these are the kind of artists, muralists, painters, theater actors, and movie makers. So these are the kind of people who are out. Some of them have arrived in the United States. I think around 15 of them been based in different states right now, trying to settle and pre-settle, find their lives. We have around 19 of them in Albania in a refugee camp. We have some in Canada, some even in Uganda. So there's are scattered all over the world, but they're working, they're painting, they're continuing doing art therapy sessions for the refugees. But I have 66 artists and their families who are stuck in Afghanistan. And I'm trying every other way to find, to get them out, because they've lost their livelihood. Afghanistan has become silent, black and white. And there's no room for any art and creativity. So somehow we're trying to find ways to both save the gains that we had in the last 20 years in art and culture, at the same time save some of the artists who really want to continue their work.
Mm-hmm. So I know this is sort of building a little bit on what you've already started to say, but I know you've traveled quite a bit since you've been based in the States. You've been to Europe a number of times, I believe, if I remember correctly. And so on the one hand, I want to ask you about what you just described in a way, to say a little bit more about the experience of the diaspora for the artists who have left Afghanistan, and how this might be a long-term situation, as painful as I'm sure that is to contemplate, though I'm sure it's nothing new I mean, obviously you must think of it constantly, but what it means to be in a diaspora, how one can work through that situation, and also how the work has been translating to all of these different spaces that you've now been traveling through since you've left.
It's really difficult to process the trauma, David. And I think for me, I did not have the time. I have just compartmentalized it. It's in the back of my mind. I know it will affect me really badly in some time because I'm avoiding it, but I'm just trying to find the right way to process this trauma, to find the right person to talk to, the right tools to go through this. Because the moment I was out of Kabul and I spent 35 days in a refugee camp in Abu Dhabi, and still I was talking every single day from my cell or room in the refugee camp. But I had to help my artists, I had to help my family and all of that. So I am still in that kind of very rushed mood of continue the work of ArtLords, help artists and all of that. But the people I meet, I went to refugee camps in Albania, Italy, France. I'm in Turkey, in Istanbul right now, and I'm working with Afghan refugees. So I've been Canada. I've been traveling all over these places. The most difficult part for them, apart from losing one's country and identity and whatever they have built, they're in a kind of a limbo situation. They really don't know what is happening to them. Are they going to be accepted in the United States, or are they going to Canada, or in any European countries? What will happen to the education of their kids? And I am seeing a lot of mental health issues among the Afghan refugees. And to be honest, there's no help. Once we go to a refugee camp and we ask them to come and paint, trust me, like 800 people come to paint in just one session, because there's no other thing to do. So it's heartbreaking. It's very sad. And you see all these people educated and they've worked so hard for their passions, for a purpose and all of that. But suddenly they're just sitting in a hotel room or sitting in a refugee camp and for the last 8 months. So I hope and I pray that this situation is solved. But I see a lot of hands, a lot of organizations, a lot of different actors and Afghan diaspora who are based in these countries are really working hard to change the situation for them. So hopefully it will be difficult, but hopefully they will find their way.
Yeah. How can people here help? Is there anything material that we can do?
I think it was heartbreaking when what happened with Afghanistan and the deal which America signed with the Taliban and all of that. But once we arrived in the United States, David, I'm really grateful for the people of the United States. They have been very kind enough. They have taken a lot of refugees and they helped my family. They were there. They were like coming to our houses. They were setting up our houses. So this kindness, I am sure it will be repaid back by all those people who are coming as refugees to their new countries. I think it's very important that we continue this. I think it's very important that we do not look away from what is happening to Afghanistan. There's other crisis which is happening, and when the Afghanistan news is, there's a fatigue about Afghanistan. It's no longer the news, nobody's talking about it, but it doesn't mean that things are not happening. Just imagine that your daughter, your wife, your sister, they're imprisoned. Like half of Afghanistan is simply in prison, and there's people starving. Before they were dying in explosions and all of that, and now they're dying of starvation. So I think if you can, talk about it, be a voice for all those people who are voiceless. And if you can, volunteer your time, continue helping all those Afghan refugees who are arriving. And if you have the means, there's a lot of donation platforms that you can also donate. ArtLords is a recipient of donations. We will be able to go and continue doing art therapy sessions in different places. So there's so many ways that you can help, and I hope you continue doing that.
Okay, I'm gonna move to our Q&A, audience members. I never know if I'm not going to mention people's names. If you'd like me to, after I read your question, just send a chat, because I think some people like to be anonymous. So the first question is, thank you for your work and for this talk. I'm hosting a family of refugees from Jalalabad. The parents seem reluctant to have their children paint, play music, or dance. I can't tell if they feel afraid, constrained by religious prohibition or gender norms, caste issues, or perhaps I'm misreading them. I wonder if you found cultural reluctance at home in Afghanistan for many people to participate in art making.
Afghanistan is a very diverse country, as I mentioned in the earlier part of my presentation, and there has been a lot of pushback against art and culture, and you can see it throughout in the last 44 years of war and violence. Art and cultural issues has been the least important for the people. Nobody talks about it. While I was growing up, I was never taken, like, there was not a chance for my father to take me to a gallery. So just imagine 35 years of my life, there was not a single gallery that somebody could take me there. So for a lot of families in Afghanistan, they were not exposed to art and culture and all of that. It's because it's a survival mood for them. They had to survive. They had to survive from the explosions, from the poverty and all of that. So somehow in some places in Afghanistan, there is a bit of reluctance because they have not experienced it. They don't know how it feels. When we were trying to work with them on the streets, one of the idea was that we are bringing art to the people. So once it is there on the street, they have to experience it. And you're creating something beautiful for them through art to see. And this makes them hopeful. So I think for the family that you're hosting, soon we will be in your city or close by. And I hope you bring them or let us talk to them, because if they come in and they join one of the sessions where we talk about Afghanistan, we talk about identity issues, where we paint together, do calligraphy, for example, we do calligraphy of verses of hadiths from Quran and Sharia and all of that. So it's that's how some people, they join in our art therapy sessions. So I'm sure they will slowly change, but the reluctance is a bit of culture shock, a bit of not knowing what is happening, but I'm sure it takes a bit of time for them, but definitely they will change.
Thanks for that question. Here's another one. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and your humanitarian work. Also, thank you for including the poem from, I'm probably not going to pronounce this correctly, Saedi. Is that close enough? In your Zoom background, I'm from Iran, and as someone who has left her country seeking hope, your work very much resonates with me. My question is, how do you see the contribution of your work to social change being different while working from within the national boundaries of Afghanistan and now beyond those boundaries from abroad?
Thank you. Yes, the poem is from Saadi, a great Persian poet. And we painted this mural, part of our campaign in South Asia, where artists from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from India, we all came together and we painted a Persian poem, which is about humanity, about human beings, all empathy, kindness, and all of that. So this is a symbol of that mural. It has a bit of the symbols of the region, I would say. I think for us, we still continue doing our work inside Afghanistan. The artists we have, they continue working, painting, but they are in hiding. We do not publicize their work, but they have been continuing doing their work. They're creating animations, short movies, documentaries, and they're doing a lot of paintings as well in their homes. That continues. But being outside Afghanistan, for us, I think it is, our work has found another aim, another objective, which is advocating for the art and culture of Afghanistan, for becoming a voice for all those people who are voiceless in Afghanistan, and also for preserving the gains that we had in art and culture scene in Afghanistan. So that once, I'm sure when the Taliban are gone, we have not forgotten, or we have not lost all the gains, and helping all these artists. So it has completely shifted to becoming more of an advocacy platform for us. And also the art therapy sessions that we provide in different parts of the world for Afghan refugees, it has become sort of a link between the Afghan diaspora, Afghan refugees, with their identity, with their country. So that's also somehow we are trying to connect them and work with them.
Great, thank you. And there's one more. If there are other questions, I have a few after this one, but please don't hesitate to type in the Q&A out there. Okay, so this one, you stated you were educated and lived in Afghanistan your entire life, and many people do not have access to education. How are you able to learn English and develop your intellect, artistic ability, and social activism and engagement?
Thank you. Yes, I was born in Kabul, raised, educated, working. I learned English when the first time Taliban came in Kabul. It was 1996 until 2001. They were in charge of Kabul. So that was the time I learned English. And then 9/11 happened, I went to American University of Afghanistan, which was a very great university in Kabul. And I think the last 20 years, it has been significant for Afghanistan, and the whole generation was educated. And you would be surprised to see many scholars, intellectuals, artists, activists from Afghanistan, which were heavily invested on in the last 20 years, both by the international community, by their families, by the Afghan government, and all of that. I think I owe it to Afghanistan, and in the last 20 years of experiencing it myself, working with different capacities, different places, and also the pain and suffering that you go through that. So growing up in Afghanistan, I experienced firsthand what happened to the people. I have lost members of my family. I've started working when I was 12 years old. I kept selling cigarettes on the streets of Kabul. So that's how I have experienced life, and tried to pick up a brush, then a gun and a book. So that, I think that is the way a lot of Afghans have the similar stories like me.
That's a pretty incredible answer. We have a couple more. Very inspiring, thank you. Do you know the French documentary Faces Places by Agnès Varda in collaboration with the muralist JR? Though the context and intent of JR's murals are very different than those of ArtLords, there is, I think, a kinship between this work and yours.
I love the work of JR. I don't know this specific documentary, but I am following JR's work. He is incredible. We hope that we have opportunities or find ways that we could collaborate with them on some of the projects for Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan, as he has been doing a lot of good work around the world.
That made me, that sort of opens to a question that I had for you as well. We have another one, which I'm afraid might be for me, but we'll get to that in a second. But are there other practices around the world that either inspired you when you were developing ArtLords or working on it, or have inspired you since you've left the country?
We have been following all the major mainstream movements around the world, David. At the beginning, we were heavily influenced by Banksy, the English, the world-known graffiti artist. And some of the early work that we have done is very close to what he was doing. And then we moved a bit to more indigenous kind of work in Afghanistan. But we love Banksy, we follow JR, and there's a lot of artists, especially muralists in Colombia and Brazil, that we follow or collaborate with.
Okay, this one I think is for me, and I'll read it. Professor Joselit, in your recent book, Heritage and Debt, you write that during the 1980s, a process of image deregulation collapsed, and there's quotations here, some of that was quoted, collapsed, quote, Eurocentric standards of value long applied to art of different regions and aesthetic registers, namely fine art, mass culture, and indigenous expression, unquote. Could you tell us a little bit about the 1980s in the context of Afghanistan and how you think about Mr. Sharifi's project as an art historian and critic? Many thanks. Well, I have to admit that I don't really know what was going on in Afghanistan in the 1980s. Maybe Omaid can give us a sense of that. And this is going to be it's going to start out as a very unsatisfying answer, which is that my book was really about a certain genre of art that is known as global contemporary art that circulates within a certain kind of Eurocentric infrastructure. And basically, what I was arguing about as sort of image deregulation was that various forms of mass culture and high culture began to be valued as the artifacts of otherness from different places on similar levels, so that there began to be a kind of breakdown in the absolute primacy of a certain kind of Western notion of an avant-garde or progressive art practice. But what I think you're, in my book, the last chapter is called Citizens of Information, and I try to make a strong case that that really the political potential of art is in expanding a civil society where people feel empowered to learn about, read, and manipulate information on their own. Maybe manipulate's the wrong word, deploy it. And I think from that point of view, what Omaid is doing with ArtLords is absolutely the most politically efficacious kind of work, in the sense that it's really about creating civic space in a very literal and real way that I think much of Western art can no longer really accomplish, because there's so many mediations between the work and its very capital intensive infrastructure of museums, et cetera, which already exist. So Omaid, I don't know if you want to add any, you don't need to comment on Kabul in the 80s, but in case you want to.
Just not so much. I was born in the 80s, but I think in 79, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, for the next 10 years, the art scene especially was heavily used as a propaganda tool for the Soviet-backed government. So it was a lot of music, musicians, muralists, posters, and all of that were sort of in the use of as a tool for propaganda for the regime, which this is what I could say, not more of that, I think. But also then again, the violence starts, the Mujahideen and all of that. So, what really happens is that Afghanistan used to have one of the biggest museums in the region. And then the moment the Soviet-backed government collapses, the Mujahideen comes in, and I think this is one of the biggest crimes they did, apart from killing a lot of people, was to loot the whole museum, which now we can still find pieces smuggled around the world. So those are the incidents that I can remember from the 80s and art scene in Afghanistan and Kabul.
I mean, one of the arguments that I made, just to sort of put a postscript on that, and then we'll move to another very interesting question, is that what contemporary art begins to do, both in the West and outside in the 1980s, is to begin to animate various forms of inherited culture, what I call somewhat polemically heritage. And this is called postmodernism in the West, but in many other parts of the world, it's a way of entering into a contemporary art dialogue by reanimating traditional forms of image making in ways that are relevant to the present and future. And the loss of museums in this context is really, I mean, there's so many ways in which the destruction of cultural heritage is an act of violence against a people, a world, but it's also, that is a specific way in which it undermines a certain kind of global practice of contemporary art, as well as the importance of having that historical work available for its home culture and also beyond that. So here, maybe this might be the last question. Okay, we have one more in addition. I think we'll have time for both of these. So here it is. Thank you for everything. This will be naive, but have there been, or can you imagine any possible future dialogues with the Taliban regarding cultural spaces or activities that could mediate what seem unbridgeable existing oppositions? Is iconoclasm a persistent adversary? Could there be any neutral imagery?
I'm a very optimist person, but with the current regime in charge in Afghanistan, I always say that the Taliban are afraid of two things. One is the women of Afghanistan and the other is art. And the first time they were in control, they banned any expression of art. And I always remember the scenes where I was riding my bicycle and you would see the video cassettes and the TV, broken TVs and radios on all the streets. And it will be again the same. And as the way they dress up, it's just black and white, their clothing. That's how they think as well. I'm sorry to say, and there's no room for any color or art in their imagination, in their attitude. And this Taliban, this regime will not let any kind of art or any expression of art. So imagine half of the country is imprisoned and every single day they're bringing more restrictions. So there's no room for conversation. They just say no, black and white, and that's it.
Okay, I said that I was not going to reveal the identities of questioners, but this one I'm going to, because it's Jane Unruh, who's the director of the Scholars at Risk program, whose amazing work helped to bring you here. And so Jane is asking, Mr. Sharifi, thank you for this inspiring presentation and for your important work. Can you perhaps speak a bit more specifically about working outside of Afghanistan, what you and your partners are establishing, what is needed most for ArtLords to be able to continue and evolve, and what you envisage for the future of ArtLords, not only in the US, but elsewhere?
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for your support. You have always been very helpful and very supportive of our work and then helping me, hosting me at Harvard right now. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in Istanbul right now, and the whole idea is to establish an office for ArtLords outside Kabul and outside the United States, where I can be closely working in the region and with a lot of Afghans who are living in Istanbul. We are also continuing our work. Next week, I will be in France working with Afghan refugees and African refugees who are based in Paris. So the work of ArtLords will continue in terms of our painting murals, having offices outside the US and then out of Kabul, and continuing to support artists, not only Afghan artists, but Ukrainian artists, African artists in the future. And it's just the beginning. It's a lot of work, but we will continue moving forward and hopefully be able to achieve our goals.
So I think that's a good note to end on. I didn't realize till you mentioned it that you were in Istanbul. Thank you for staying up very late to address us here on the East Coast of the United States. And thank you for all of your work, Omaid. It's been inspiring to get to know you a little bit when you've been here. And I wish you all the very best. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here at Harvard and also in our great audience tonight. So thank you so much. And I hope you get some well-deserved rest.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your kind questions, for moderating decisions, and thank you to Mahindra Humanities Center, Jane, Susie, for helping us have this great conversation and the questions from audience. Have a very good evening, everyone.
Good night.